There we are. Hello. I presume you can all see me and hear me. Let me know in the chat. While we wait for people to arrive, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about what I've been up to lately. Let me just get this set up here. I'm working on a course right now using SQL with Python. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and then I'll take your questions on any topic. Python uses a standard interface called DB-API to communicate with the database. The current version of the standard is DB-API 2.0. The purpose of the DB-API is to promote commonality among the interfaces so that each database management system more or less uses the same code to access data from Python. And I say more or less because the DBMSs themselves are different enough that this just doesn't always work like that. You still need to, of course, use the DB API is feature complete, including support for all common relational database operations, and you still need to, of course, use the SQL syntax for each specific database system. I am switching through my screens here just to check on everything. Yeah, there we go. All right, excellent. The common interface includes a connection object for holding the credentials and parameters of the database connection, a cursor object for maintaining context in a sequence of query responses, and common hooks for committing and rolling back transactions, and a set of exceptions unique for each database management system for catching errors. Each DBMS has its own implementation, which may include different connection details. SQLite, my scroll went too far there. SQLite requires only a file name, as the database is entirely contained in one file. Oops, yeah, that's not going to work. Oh, there we go. Aha. Client-server databases require more connection information, and usually some security credentials. Cursors in the DB API serve two purposes. They act as iterators, keeping track of a position in the database, and this allows your code to step through query results and without the need to hold more than one row at a time in active memory, which is essential for a large database query. In the DB API implementation, the cursor also acts as prepared statements, and this allows you to use placeholders in a query, provide automatic sanitizing of parameters, and significant performance improvements. So in the course that I'm working on, I'll show you how to wrap the Python interface in a more specialized Crud interface. Crud stands for create, read, update, and delete, the four fundamental operations of a database interface. You'll need to be able to do these four things in order to use a database effectively. And I want to show you real quick here, if I can find it. There it is. And I presume you can all see this code here. Let me just get rid of this on the side. So this is a sample application that uses the Crud interface. This is not using the DB API. Rather, there's a wrapper, which I'll show you real quick here, in the form of this module, this Python module, which is pretty substantial. This is what, about 500 lines of code. And what it does is it creates an interface. First, it creates a simple SQL interface, and then it also creates a Crud interface on top of that so that you can do something like this in just a few lines of code. This is like less than 200 lines of code. And I'm just going to demonstrate real quickly what this does. This is a simple command line CRUD interface, and it looks like this. It's a little command line menu. L for list, I can list the records in the database. It's a simple two-column database of domain names and descriptions. And so I can add a domain if I want. What am I going to add here? I'll add google.com. And we'll say a place to go to a place. And so now we've added a row, and when I list it now, there's 6 domains. We can edit one. I can edit, I'll edit record number 1, bw.org, and I'll say, instead of very cool website, I'll say International Geek of Mystery, which is actually the subtitle of my website. And now when I list them, you'll see that that one has changed. And I can delete a domain if I want to. I can delete, let's delete Google because that's always fun. So it does a search, it finds the record, it asks me if I want to delete, and I say yes. And if I want to, I can quit, or I can drop table and exit, which would return this database to its original state before we did this. But for now, we'll just quit, and we'll take a real quick look at the code, because the way this happens, the vast majority of this code, 99% of this code, is all the housekeeping. It's the menu, it's the jump table, and then we've got these, for each of these add domain, for example, I have to, I have a little bit of housekeeping to do. I have to put out a prompt. I have to prompt for the domain and the description. And then the actual database interface is right here. It says add row. And I give it a domain and a description, because this CRUD interface makes it that easy to deal with. In fact, even connecting to the database is simple here. Right up here at the top, I just tell it if I'm using SQLite or MySQL, because this interface works for either one of them. And I tell it where the database is. And it's as simple as that. So that was add. Here's find. I get the domain name that I'm searching for, and then I call find row. And if it finds it, great, I display it. And if not, then I say it didn't. And so all of these are like this. There's edit domain, where I have, I call find domain from here. And then I call update row. It's just one line of code. And list domain, it uses the get rows as an iterator, which is a nice little feature. Delete domain calls find domain first and then calls delete row there on line 139. And DropDB actually uses some SQL. So I call SQL do, and I can just pop in the SQL right there, and it just works. So, and here's our main, where if we don't already have the database, we create the database. And again, that's SQL do with that create table statement. It's as simple as this. So, this is the power of a, hang on just a second here. So this is the power of a database interface. This is the power of a wrapper around the standardized interface. And what I recommend that people do when you're building your database applications is to create a wrapper that's specific for your application, that knows about your database relationships, that knows about your, how the records are constructed. And of course, you construct your records in a consistent way. In this case, each of these you'll notice here in my create table statement, it has an ID column, and it's the first column. And so that's a requirement for my Crud, which is a fairly generalized interface, but it works for a lot of purposes. I mean, there's a lot of little applications out there that really just use one table in a database. And for something like that, something like SQLite is perfect. And to just, you just create your table, you have that ID at the beginning of it, and go. You can use this Crud interface, and it works really, really well. So that is my presentation for now. I see we've just got a few people here today. I'm sorry that I had to cancel last week. I had just gotten my first shot of the Pfizer COVID vaccination, and it just wiped me out for the next day. And I knew that would happen, and I didn't really schedule it that way. I had a surprise opportunity to get that vaccination, and so I went and I took the opportunity, and it just wiped me out for the next day, and I just couldn't do it. So here we are a week later, and I'm feeling great, and I'm looking forward to my second shot, which will happen at the beginning of April, and then maybe maybe I'll be able to walk out my front door again. In any event, if y'all have any questions, we can handle those questions now. It says that there's 3 viewers, and frankly, I think one of them is me, so I'm going to close that. And yeah, so who do we got here? I know we have Leela. Leela is part of my team, and she's assisting me today. Leela actually serves as my business manager and general right-hand person. She's indispensable to my business and my world, and I appreciate her being here to help out. If we have anybody else, otherwise, I guess I might just end this, end this quickly with apologies again for having to cancel last week. Anybody out there? It doesn't look like it is. The other problem is that for reasons that I will never understand, Facebook banned me from doing live broadcasts on Facebook for a month. They found, we have LinkedIn user, yes, I am here, hi there, so what's your name, where are you, and do you have a question? Yeah, Facebook, what Facebook did is, somebody reported some post of mine from like 4 years ago, and Facebook banned me for some reason, banning me from live streams was their answer to that. And then I appealed it, and they said, oh yeah, this doesn't violate our rules at all, and they said they were removing the ban, and they didn't. And so I just got to wait out the month because there's actually no way to get hold of anybody there. And hopefully next month I'll be able to stream on Facebook again, because really that seems to be where my greatest audience is, on Facebook. So I announced this on Facebook, and we'll see if apparently people didn't want to click through the Facebook link. In any event, we do have a LinkedIn user. Who are you? Where are you? Do you have any questions? Is there any reason for us to keep this going? Because I would love to talk about whatever it is that you want me to talk about. And I guess not. Okay, so this recording will remain on both LinkedIn and on YouTube. And so if you want to go back over my presentation on using databases in SQL databases in Python, then you can see that. Otherwise, my course will be finished sometime next month, and then it takes LinkedIn 6 to 8 weeks to go through all of their processing to get something live. So We hope to have it live sometime in June. And LinkedIn user, you are in, I don't know where that is, and but you're originally from Turkey. I know where that is. And oh yeah, I see, from Turkey. Yeah, you're Abdullah from Turkey, and you're here because it says, "I have learned so much from you, and I don't want to miss the opportunity." That's so nice. There's a new feature here with a chat overlay, which does not seem to be working. Okay, yeah, that's not what we expected that to be. But Abdullah, I appreciate your sentiment. I appreciate your wanting to learn more. And so, is there anything in particular that you would like to learn more about? I just gave a little presentation on SQL in Python. I'm also working on a course in, yes, Leela, we will post the YouTube link to Facebook. Absolutely. And it's already posted there, but I'll edit down the video and post it again. I'm also doing a course on SQL in C++. And I'm not as far along in the exercises, so I don't have all my exercises done to be able to demonstrate anything for you. But I did find one interesting thing. So the SQLite interface, which normally works in Xcode and works in any compiler, and it usually ships with any of these compilers, it does not work on the new Apple Silicon Macs for some reason. It's probably just a bug or something they haven't gotten around to implementing yet. But I went out and got a new MacBook Air so that I could test this code on the new Apple Silicon processors. And in fact, MySQL works, but it doesn't work in Xcode. So I can get it to work in the command line compiler. And I could also do that with SQLite, because then I could just take the source code to the SQLite driver and just compile it on the command line and link it with my code, and that would work just fine. So it's not, Xcode on the Apple Silicon is not really ready yet for this. But in any event, I'm working on those two courses, and I am very much looking forward to. So next month I will do this on time, or at least I'll try to. I'll still be in the middle of working on these courses, and there's always a chance that I'll get delayed. But I don't expect to be getting, my second COVID shot is going to be a week or so, or 2 weeks before that. So that should be fine. In any event, thank you for showing up. Thank you, Abdullah. Oh, and there's another one here from Kosovo. Ate. I don't know how to pronounce that. ATD. Let's see here. It is ATDHE. And I appreciate you being here as well. And we have somebody new. Just say hi. Here's my question. Your update goes into the Python 3 course. If so, please comment on all highlights, differences, updates. Oh, so this is not a new Python 3 course. What this is this is a supplement that's just about using SQL in Python. And it does use Python 3 because Python 3 is now the standard. There's still a lot of Python 2 code out there, but Python 3 is the standard. So my Python course, my Python Essential Training course is still up on LinkedIn and on lynda.com. I think they're going to actually take down lynda.com and start redirecting all that traffic to LinkedIn Learning at the end of this month. But that course is still up. There is one problem with the course, which is that I wrote it using a Python editor. It was called Komodo, which is no longer supported by the manufacturer and does not work on the current Macs, and people are even having trouble with it on current versions of Windows. And so, excuse my voice here just a second. Water. I try to drink 3 of these a day. These are a liter of water. Yeah, so instead, we'll be, I'm directing people to use, instead, to use this Pycharm, which is what I was showing here, which is actually a really, really excellent Python development environment that allows a lot more flexibility even than the than the old one that I was using in that course. The course from today's presentation, Peter, the course from today's presentation. Here's the question. This will be called something like using SQL in Python. And we expect it to be released sometime in June. I'm still in the process. I'll be recording next month, and then my editor gets it and he does his magic, and then LinkedIn gets it and they do their administrative stuff, and then it gets posted. It's about 6 weeks from the time that I finish recording until VS Code. You know, that's a good question. This is from a LinkedIn user. VS Code is basically a light version of Visual Studio. And in order to make it do anything useful, you need to use the plugins. And I found that for the purposes of, for your purposes for development, it may be perfect for you. For my purposes for these courses, it has to be a combination of things. It has to be very simple to set up. It has to be very simple for somebody who's a novice to go from downloading the code to running the exercises. And it has to be a minimum number of steps in order for that to happen. And what I found with VS Code, I could get it to work, but it took a lot of fiddling. And it's a big distraction. And when I try to get people to do a lot of fiddling before they can actually run the exercises to learn the thing that they came to learn, I end up losing a lot of students. So I don't do that. Yes, Pycharm is free. There's an enterprise edition which costs money, and there's also a community edition. Again, this is Peter. Yes, Pycharm has a community edition that's free. That's the version that I'm using here, and you can do everything that you need to do. For example, here, here I am in Pycharm, and I've got this this piece of code, and I want to run it. Now I'm on a Mac, so I hit Control-Shift-R, and it brings up a shell because I'm on a Mac, which is basically Unix. So this is a bash shell or a Z shell, whatever my Mac is set up for, and it runs the code. And I can do all the things. I can interact with it, and when I'm done, Control D, just like in Unix, or I can there's a button up here someplace to close it, but I just do Control D, or Control W works as well, and it's done. And I can go back to editing my code, making changes, and then when I'm ready to run it again, I just hit that command for running it again. And so, this gets me very quickly to the point, and easily. The amount of setup that's necessary to do this is pretty minimal it's better than anything else that I've ever used for this purpose. And I also find that it's a perfectly serviceable IDE for Python, and I'm using it for my Python development these days as well. And I'm using the free version because I'm perfectly happy to pay for something, but because I'm a teacher and I'm teaching people who don't always have the resources to pay for things, I like to use the free software so that I can demonstrate that and I can show you how to do that. You're looking at a small corner of my studio here. Obviously, I can afford to pay for software, but a lot of people can't, and I want to be empathetic with those people and be able to teach them how to learn the things that they need to learn so that they can go out there and get the job that they want to get, and they can earn the money that they want to get, and be able to have a wonderful life. And really, that's the whole why of why I do what I do. I want people to be successful, and I want to be able to help them to get there. So yeah, long way of explaining. There is a free version of Pycharm, and it works great, and I highly recommend it. So if we've gotten to the end of our questions, I'm going to start wrapping up again. And every time I do this, we seem to get a couple more questions. Again, thank you. Thank you, Leela. This again is the chief member of my staff, Leela Sullivan. She's my business manager, and she assists me on these live things. And you rock too. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Again, thank all of you, and I really appreciate you. I love you, and keep doing what you're doing. And I will see you again next month on schedule, which I'm just going to go look at my calendar real quick and tell you exactly what the date of that is. That is April 9th, which is the second Friday in April. And so I will see you on April 9th at noon Pacific, and whatever time that turns out to be in your time zone. I know I have my little slides that I've already translated it. I think it's early evening in UCT GMT. Again, thank you all very much. I love you, and I will see you next time.